My name is Tony, and I am a pick and shovel consultant. So I flew in last night from Nevada. I actually did. I got in 2 o'clock this morning. And to come to here, this is the first time I've been in Florida speaking to cannabis people. I've been throughout the United States, Boston, Massachusetts, spent a lot of time in Illinois. Illinois' regs are 71 pages long, just to give you an idea of what you can expect to see. And then I was in Nevada yesterday talking to some of my clients. Actually, one of them is one of the 18 who already has an application. And the one thing I come away with a lot is, before I start that, let me ask this question. How many people have ever been in the retail field? Raise your hand. So not a lot. So I've been in the loss prevention retail field for 30 years, all of it retail, Sears, Macy's, little company out here called Value Pawn shops, payday loan businesses. Our company specializes purely in high-risk businesses. Any business has a large amount of money and a very desirable piece of merchandise. So that's the firearm business, jewelry stores, cannabis, and so forth, convenience stores and alcohol stores. And here's the one thing I want you to take away and give some thought to. When you look at a business, you always look at the who, the what, and the why. Who's your customer going to be? What you're going to offer your customer? And then the last question is, well, why are you offering this to your customer? Is it going to make you a lot of money? Is usually a big desire in retail. When you look at high-risk businesses and what can happen in a high-risk business from a public point of view and what your exposure is, it's important to understand the need for good loss prevention or for security. And here, let me give you, for instance, I deal with firearm businesses. If a firearm company a retail store doesn't handle their business appropriately, and someone winds up with a weapon that they should not have had, and they discharge that weapon at a police officer in a school, everyone is going to come back and say, we should ban guns. If someone gets alcohol and they're underage, and they start to drive and they're drunk, and they hit somebody, we should ban alcohol. If you're in the cannabis business and your security is not where it needs to be, and you have an employee who hands out marijuana candy to some kids who bring it to a school, and they consume it and get sick, because you can't die, but you can get sick from it, people are going to say, why is there marijuana being sold in this state? And the important thing about here's a difference that I see. If you don't sell firearms, you're just out of the firearm business. If you don't sell alcohol, you're out of the alcohol business. If they ban marijuana, the canna moms are going to come and kill you, which is important to know. So, let me see. So first thing I want to talk about, and we can talk about a lot of security, and what I'm doing is I'm talking in the future for you. You'll have to get your application. I agree, very difficult process. We just heard about that. Hopefully you will. When you do, you'll be in the retail business. One of the things that cannabis retail owners have is a lot of marijuana and a lot of cash. And everybody knows you do. So, welcome to the world of retail. In Boulder County, $11,000 worth of marijuana was stolen from a medical marijuana dispensary in a daytime raid. In the news, you read in California about some thieves who come and ransacked a medical marijuana location. 2 people were killed in another dispensary. At least one was killed, was an unarmed security guard during that robbery. Now here's the thing. I can come up here and go into my Brooklyn attitude, and I can tell you all the negative things about retail and the medical marijuana field. But the one thing you need to come away with and understand is it could be worse. The cannabis robberies are much lower than you see in a bank, much lower than you see in a pawn shop, much lower than you see in a convenience store on ratio of the locations that are open in the United States. And from that, we can learn from those industries. So we're not going to reinvent the wheel. You know, your growers may reinvent the wheel on how they grow their strains, or your cultivation centers may reinvent the wheel on how they actually grow your product. But when it comes to the retail end of it, and when I talk retail, I'm talking dispensaries and cultivation centers, we can learn from other businesses. If you think in the high-risk businesses I'm talking about and what you do, if you look at a jewelry store, pawn shop, convenience store, liquor store, firearms store. So when you design your loss prevention program, and that's what you'll be designing, you won't be designing a security program. Difference between security and loss prevention. When people don't want you speeding through school, they have the sign that says, "Don't speed," and there's a police officer there, and he has a gun and a radar gun, and you see the police officer, and you slow down, and you don't speed for that moment because the police officer's there. That's security. When they put those speed bumps in front of the school, and there's no police officer there, but you still have to slow down, that's loss prevention. So getting kind of an idea of the difference between that. So when you design your loss prevention program, people go, "Oh, I have to have the state-of-the-art loss prevention program." Illinois statutes, 10 pages of security alone in their application process. And I have to have the best camera system, and I have to have this, I have to have that. I've seen camera systems cost $35,000. I've seen camera systems cost $3,000. You don't have to have that. People will sell you that, but you don't have to have that. So think of anyone ever hear the story of the two campers and the bear? One guy's went to the University of Florida, and the other one went to the University of Miami. Two guys are standing there, and they're walking through the woods, and they see a big bear. And I'll pick one. The University of Miami guy bends down, starts to tie his shoes, while the other guy starts to run away. The University of Florida guy turns around and says, "Why are you tying your shoes? You'll never outrun that bear." And the guy looks up and says to him, "I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun you." And that's how your security should be set up. Your security system should be as the best loss prevention and security programs that you have has to be better than the guy down the street. Your plans don't have to be the best in the world. It just needs to be better than the guy down the street. This is actually a photo of one of the locations that I went to visit at a cultivation center. Great lock. Really good chain. I have a trouble with the zip tie that's connecting the two. If you buy me a beer later, I can tell you 30 years of stupid stories. So, what's your threat? Your biggest threat is internal. 75% of most retail companies' losses come internally. Friends, family, employees, people who have worked with you, people you've known for years. The average internal theft in a retail environment, big global picture, retail's everything, is $100,000 in losses from someone who works in your company. Biggest threat. They take cash, they take merchandise. Just had a guy recently in a trim facility, trimming the marijuana. He's wearing latex gloves, puts a bud in his hand. At the end of the day, or throughout the day, pulls his glove off, throws his glove in the trash. Comes back later on, takes the trash home with him. Has a bunch of rubber gloves in there. Your external problems, armed robbery, you got a lot of cash. You got a lot of marijuana. Break-ins, I don't feel like pulling a gun, so I'll just break in and rob your store at night when no one's there. Difference between a robbery and a burglary is a robbery occurs while you're there, a weapon is used to threaten you, to give you something. A burglary occurs when no one is there and someone breaks in to rob your store. And shoplifting. I use the word shoplifting. It's a retail term. It was what happens. People come in. If you look in Colorado, they'll have the product on the wall. Depends on what your regs are going to be. They can't afford it, so they try and pocket it and walk out with it. And that's where your losses can occur. So, like I said, they're manageable. You know, awareness is the key. There's a lot of solutions. So don't get yourself down when you do open up your retail store. There's a lot of solutions to that. How do you control your behavior? Knowing the difference between prevention and security. What to do if you use a guard. And we can go into all kinds of things and talk about the various levels of loss prevention and security you can have. I picked one topic, threats or cash losses, inventory losses, the armed robbery. How are you going to move your cash? How are you going to move your inventory? How it comes in from the cultivation center? What the cultivation center does with the inventory at night? How do you secure that, so forth? And those are various other topics. And I want to thank the Florida Cannabis Coalition. Like I said, this is the first time I've been in Florida. Tom and I met several times. We met in Denver, where I was just at the National Cannabis Industry Association convention. And, it is the best association right out here in Florida right now. So let's talk a little bit about cash losses, just to kind of give you an idea of some of the things you might come across. Cash. My philosophy of cash is treat it like trash. You don't want it. Limit the touch of it. You want to get it away from your retail location. You want to get it into your bank. You want to get it out of your store. You want to remove it at every opportunity you can. If you're a cultivation center and you take in cash, you want to get that cash out of your location as quickly as possible. A dispensary, you want to make sure you're going to your bank and making those deposits and getting that money out of your store. You shouldn't have $100,000 in cash sitting in your store. Keep your cash levels low and at your register drawer. One of the things that I always recommend is have a little safe. So as they take the money in, just like any other retail establishment, you have a set amount of money that should be in the register drawer. The rest of the money goes into a little drop box that's a little safe that you can use. You can use a cigar box for all I care. Get the money out of the drawer. Eliminate the exposure that someone might have, that they know there's a large amount of cash in your store, and there's a large amount of cash in your cash drawer. Get it out of the store. If there's anything you take away today when I talk about cash management, is have a process in place where you get it out of the store. If you're on vacation, have somebody else take that cash out of the store. So during business hours, good cash management processes and procedures. Have a good location. Camera placements are key. If you go into a location and you see that all the cameras are in the ceiling, then someone that did not do a very good job, because think of it, all you're going to be seeing is the top of people's heads. So camera locations are important, especially in a cultivation center. Camera locations are important. You may want to consider some sort of bulletproof barrier between you and the customer, or in a dispensary, some sort of bulletproof barrier in your grow facility or your trim facility. There are safes, various safes. Here's a safe here. Each drawer, and we took this from the pawn industry. Each drawer opens independent of each other with a delay. You punch in a code, you open up the drawer, you can have your product in drawer number 1, a different product in drawer number 2. The advantage to that is, obviously, if you were robbed, the bad guys couldn't get a lot of the merchandise. You make sure that the bad guys know that in some sort of documentation in the front of the store. Some pawn shops put it in behind their loan counter. You might be able to put that behind your sale counter, but it would reduce your losses, and it sends the message. Utilizing your lock procedures and making sure you have good policies in place. That's the key. Most of the losses that I see is that you just didn't have good policies in place. Non-business threats, I talked about safe attacks, people breaking in. You see that more in a cannabis location than you do in armed robbery. There's smash and grabs. They come in, smash a smash a cannabis case and take the merchandise out of that. approaching people at opening, good opening and closing procedures, making them turn off the alarm. And then we've also had situations where owners have been kidnapped, their family's been kidnapped and held while they took you back to the store and emptied out the store in the safe. When I talk about safes, kind of one of the subjects that I'm trying to change in this industry, there's no such thing as a bad safe. Your safe is your last line of defense. If you're going to spend money in the security of your building or your loss prevention, spend money in your safe. There are gun safes and there are TL-rated safes, which means that these safes have been tested and cannot be broken into an X period of time, whether it's a TL-15, which means it'll take more than 15 minutes to break in, or TL-30, which takes more than 30 minutes to break in, which is a standard. But when you hear about safes, and as you get to that process, you'll be hearing about gun safes versus regular safes. A gun safe is designed for guns in your house. The inside of a gun safe is sheetrock. It's not metal, it's sheetrock. And this is a piece of sheetrock. And that's how easy, and keep in mind, you'll hear that a lot, and it's cheaper, but it's not designed for a retail environment. It's designed, and it's perfect for what it does. It's designed for guns, and that's what it's called. This is a TL-30 rated safe. Might be the kind that you might need depending on your quantity. Again, I'm giving you a lot of information that you'll need a year from now, but at least you'll have that information in the back of your mind, and it's reinforced. A couple of safes that have been attacked, kind of giving you an idea of whatever structure attacks, and they withstand the attacks, and we're able to protect your product. The other thing you might want to consider is a vault room in the back of your store. Depends if you're going to be growing and you're having a trim location. It's great for that. You put your workers in there. They work. At the end of the night, you close the door. You don't have to secure anything. It's all secured in there. If you're a dispensary, where do you store your product? You can store it in a safe, or you might want to consider a vault. Vaults are more expensive, but it is an option. A lot of the large dispensaries have vaults throughout the United States. So, final thoughts. Your challenges are not unique. Don't leave here today going, we have to reinvent everything. You don't. The risk is shared by other businesses. We can learn from those businesses. That's what my company brings to the owners, is experience in other businesses and how to move diamonds. You're moving buds. It's the same thing. How do you move cash from a jewelry store is the same way you'll move cash at your location. And remember, your loss prevention program is a state of the mind. It's not a task. Give that a lot of thought, especially you'll have to give it a lot of thought in your application process, but also when you get your licenses, give that a lot of thought. Thank you very much.